Hi, welcome back. After when you machined your facing and your lining together and pressed your seam allowance, the next stage would be is applying your facing on top of your morning coat, on top of the front. So you place it right side with the right side of your facing. Your facing will be, and your lining will be a little bit bigger because, of course, as you remember, is we machined and leave a little bit, less and a little bit more of your fabric, yes? So we check all around. And what we're going to do, which is actually lace, very nice. So we're going to match our seams with the waist seam with the waist seam on your facing and lining. So these two together, so that's matching together. So I'm going to put a couple of pins. Also remember on the facing, we do not have dart, so that's very important for you to remember. If you have machined the dart on the facing, then you need to unpick and press it flat. So we don't have the dart because we're going to, the amount of the dart we have here, we're going to ease that into our lapel. So as you see, it's much bigger here, and that's how it should be. So we match your seam allowance. Just going to put in a couple of pins in a couple of places, make sure it's all fine. Then I'm going to also pin your seams with side seam or with a side seam. So you pin your waistline with the waistline together, which just helps you to match your lining with the top. And then we spread it, make sure it's all lays flat. Now the next step would be we're going to flip it over. And we're going to work now from the main top. And we're going to pin it together by matching our seam allowance. There. And then continue matching. Now your of course your facing gonna be much bigger here. Can you see that? That's okay. Just leave it as it is. We're only going to just pin it together. So we're going to trim some of your seam allowance because it's way too big. So that matching, and here. Here. Exactly the same we're going to do with lining. So you match your seam allowance with lining. And continue pinning along the front edge. There we go. Then at the bottom as well. Okay. So it's very important that you do that. So yeah, pull your lining away from that so you can match your seam allowance. So I'm just going to make sure it all lays flat as well, so that's quite important. I'll do that. Okay. Your lining have to lay flat. So if it doesn't, you need to pull your lining away. So now can you see my lining is laying absolutely flat here. Perfect. Okay, and as you see, so that side of your lining will be slightly bigger. That's okay, because as you remember, is slightly bigger. So perfect. Now, so check that, and of course our facing is bigger, and that's fine. So we're going to keep it as it is. So now we're going to trim our seam allowance because it's way too big, and just to pay attention in that at the bottom of our skirt, it's about 10 to 15 centimeters from your from your pleat. So I'm going to get 15 centimeters, so my pleat starts here. So about 15 centimeters there, where the more straighter line. So we're going to, from that point there, we're going to cut our seam allowance to 2.5. So we don't need it more than that. So we're going to cut them gradually, because just in case if something goes wrong and we need to, in certain places, we need to keep more seam allowance. There we go. So keep cutting 2.5. And we come to that point. So what we're going to do from that point here, okay, so we're going to, like, just mark, we're going to be like, do the graduate cut. You can cut it as a step like that, and then you continue cutting, or you can make it as a graduate line. I usually do just as a graduate, which is have less thickness. Just cut my seam allowance. It's easy to match when you cut your seam allowance because it's way too big at the front. And of course, you only cut a seam allowance if it doesn't need to do any other adjustments. If you need adjustments after the fittings, and you change the shape of the front, or need to be slightly bigger, and of course that needs to be done all before you cut your seam allowance. Now you come to the facing here. Okay, make sure your seam allowance are matching, because you don't want to cut uneven with the facing. There we go. Take your time. Okay. Okay, perfect. Now when we done that, the next stitch would be basting your facing to your lapel. So see you next session. Bye.